There was this one night last year when I was 17. At 9 o'clock, I was meeting up with my cousin to go to a Halloween party with him. We'll call him L. While I was walking in his house, I heard the sound of a car coming up next to me, and out of instinct, I turned around and saw the car started driving closer to me. I could barely see into the car because of the tinted windows, but then it drove directly parallel to me, and I saw the window open. The person in the driver's seat said, "Hey kid, where you heading?" Now, my heart starts beating a little faster, and I get a little frightened. I look closer into the car and saw 3 more people inside the car. Now, I'm 17, so I'm aware that I shouldn't answer this guy and keep walking. I then approached the end of the block, and he turns left to block me from crossing the street. My heart started racing as he said, "Hey, I asked you a question, and it's rude not to answer." At this point, I was terrified and had no idea what to do, so I turned around and booked it down the one way that they couldn't drive into, and soon I arrived at L's house. I told him everything that happened, but we completely forgot about it and had a pretty amazing night. At 1:30, L and I walked back to my house because he was going to stay the night. Obviously, all the trick-or-treaters were gone, so the streets were empty. As we were walking, we passed by the place where the incident happened with the cars, and I started getting a little paranoid, remembering what happened. My fear became true when the same looking car pulled up about 50 feet away from us, and 3 tall guys dressed in black hoodies came out of the car with sharp objects in their hands. We looked at them for a second, and they stared at us. They then started charging at us. I screamed for L to run, and we both started running. Elle and I are very athletic. We were on the track team at our school, so we were pretty fast. I started dialing for the police and put my phone up to my ear. While doing this, Elle and I hopped the neighbor's fence to get into their backyard to catch our breath. As soon as I landed on the ground, though, I looked into the neighbor's upstairs window, and she was staring down at us from the window as if she knew that we were going to be there. We left our backyard and saw the car down the block drive away. When we got home, Elle went into my room to go blow up the mattress and relax, while I just went into the bathroom to puke. After getting out of the bathroom, I felt so good and relieved that whatever just happened was over, until I looked out the living room window, and standing there was one of the men dressed in the same black hoodie. I felt instantly sick again and thought to myself, what the hell do these guys want from me? Why are they doing this, and how do they know where I live? The man had a knife in his hand, and he put it up to his neck and pretended to cut his throat, symbolizing that I was the dead man. I saw him then run down the block, and I've never seen these people since. The only person that knows about the story is Elle and I was too afraid to tell anybody. But it's been a year since the occurrence, and nothing else has happened, and ever since that day, I started taking different routes to my cousin's house, so I can never meet up with those people again. When I was younger, I had a problem of always staying up until 2 a.m. every other night watching TV shows and movies while eating a bunch of snacks. On Halloween night, I came home from trick-or-treating with my friends and stayed up all night watching the movie Spider-Man on my TV in my room. Halfway into the movie, I happened to hear a tapping from the back door. In case you're wondering, my room is right next to the living room, which is next to the front side of the house, and the back door is on the opposite side of the house. I was laying down on my bed and thought it was probably a stick or something, so I just brushed it off. Then I heard what sounded like a knock. It wasn't too loud. It wasn't loud enough to wake anyone up, but it was definitely loud enough to get someone's attention. Again, I assumed it was something hitting the door, and I turned off the TV and closed my eyes. I assumed that since it was late, I was just tired and hearing noises. I was in that sleepy state where you fade in and out of consciousness, and I looked back at the clock and saw that some time has passed. I started closing my eyes again until I heard the sound of pressure on the floorboards in my kitchen. It didn't sound like a normal house noise, so I didn't know what to think of it. My parents were sleeping, my little brothers were in their room sleeping as well, and my older sister wasn't supposed to be home. The noises went from floorboard pressure to just noises of someone looking through cabinets. I thought that maybe my sister's plans changed and she came home, so I texted her, "Please, make a little less noise, I can hear you all the way from my room." I was a little scared and took my pocket knife that I leave in my drawers next to my bed, just in case. My sister texted me back 30 seconds later saying, "I'm sleeping over at my friend's house tonight." I felt like my heart was in my throat when I read that. Who else could have been making noise in the kitchen? I took my pocket knife in my hand and got up slowly to go to the kitchen. As I was walking to the kitchen, I realized that the noises had ceased. I started calming down a little and walking more freely until I got to the kitchen and saw a black silhouette staring straight back at me. I was terrified, so much so that I couldn't even let out a scream. I just stood there paralyzed, watching this man stare at me. Words couldn't even describe what I felt at that point. Upon closer look, I realized that he had some kind of demon-looking Halloween mask. What happened next is something that is never gonna leave me. He put his hands down on the floor and started charging at me on his hands and feet in a demonic type way, while making demon sounds with his mouth. I finally snapped out of it, took out the knife and yelled, "If you dare touch me, I'll cut your damn face off." He looked up at the knife and stared for a while. He then slowly started getting up and just stared at me, or towards me, I couldn't even tell because he had the mask on. As he looked up at me, he just blurted out one thing: "I'm gonna love coming back here to finish you and your family off." That pissed me off. I chased him with the knife all the way to the back door. My dad heard my screams from before and ran downstairs and saw the man climbing over the fence from the living room window. After climbing over the fence, the man just ran away, and that was it. Nothing ever happened after this, but I did suffer from paranoia and depression for a couple of months. I even had to go to therapy for a while. But I know that if that man ever came back today, I would be ready to get him before he gets me. This story is the reason why I stopped trick-or-treating and stopped even looking at abandoned houses. One day I was trick-or-treating with 3 of my best friends, one of them being my cousin. We were going from house to house asking for candy, even though we were 16 at the time. One of my friends said that his old house was in the area. We'll call him Albert. After Albert told us that no one lives in it and it was abandoned, our eyes lit up. Being our teenage selves, we decided to go and check it out. When we got there, the house looked to be in horrible condition. We then circled around the house and went into the backyard. Albert told us that we needed to climb in through the window, and surprisingly, the window was unlocked. While my friends were climbing in, I looked up at the second floor window and I was so sure that I saw a shadow of a man there, but it was gone a second after I looked at it. I brushed it off as me being paranoid since it was Halloween, and I joined all my friends and climbed in through the window. After we entered, we all picked up on the oddly good smell of the house. It smelled like air freshener had just been sprayed everywhere. We were looking around for a while, going to the basement and checking out the rooms. Literally 2 minutes passed since we walked in and we heard the noise of someone walking on the wooden floors upstairs. Now my suspicions were confirmed. There was definitely a man upstairs. Me and my friends gave each other that look and raced out of there. We started climbing out of the windows one by one, and while I was climbing out of the window, I looked back into the dark room and saw and heard a man scream, "Wait, don't go! I have candy for you guys!" I felt like 1,000 pounds weight fell into my chest at that moment. I jumped out of the window and feared that he might grab my leg before I got out. I slipped out and I felt him grab on my leg for a split second, but I was already out the window. I landed on the ground outside and we ran to my other friend's house. We were all terrified. Over there we decided that we should probably keep what happened to ourselves. I still wonder to this day if I made a mistake not telling my parents or calling the police, because he could still be out there. And who knows what that psychopath is doing.